Good morning, everyone. I decided to repeat one of my most popular videos this week.
It would be really interesting to see if I repeated this on a week where my activity levels were quite high, whether that would change anything.
And I've eaten exactly what my Garmin told me to again. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, I'm vegan, I'm fat, subscribe. I'm trying to lose a fair amount of weight at the moment. And one of the strategies I'm employing is diet breaks or maintenance weeks. And you could probably do a whole video about diet breaks, but the idea is it makes your weight loss journey a bit more sustainable. It means you can take some time off from tracking if you want to, and it gives your body a chance to kind of reverse some of the effects of being in a deficit for a sustained period of time. I'd been in a deficit for about 6 weeks and my period was due, so I thought now's probably a good time for a diet break. I did actually do 2 weeks of a diet break, and what you're seeing is kind of the last 8 days or so. Now, you will probably be asking, why am I just doing the same video again? Well, the reason is that last time I was having a week where I wasn't really doing very much exercise, and I wanted to repeat it on a week where I was doing a lot more activity, and that's what you're seeing in this video. And because I did a significant amount more exercise, I also had a significant amount more calories to eat, and that is what makes this video quite a bit different to the last one. Now let's talk about weight fluctuation. A huge number of things can affect how much you weigh at any given time. It's things like how much you've eaten, how well you've slept, when you last had a poo, how hydrated you are, your hormones, your salt intake, your alcohol intake, how stressed you are, how many calories you've eaten, how many clothes you got on, the type and frequency of exercise that you've done recently, what you've eaten that day, and then obviously the things that you think of, like your muscle mass and your body fat. Some of these you can control, but a lot of them you can't. So some of the steps I've taken to try and make this mini experiment as reflective of real life as it can be is to try and keep as many things the same as possible. So the type and frequency of activity I've done has been identical to previous weeks. The type of food that I'm eating has been pretty much the same, with the exception of obviously I'm eating a lot more of it. The sort of macro split of the food that I'm eating again was pretty similar, and this did come the week after my period, but my hormones were still stabilising towards the start of the week, which I think you can see in my weight loss. And also a couple of days before I started this challenge, I was on holiday and I wasn't tracking, and I was drinking a bit more alcohol and I was eating a bit more salt, and I think that did contribute to quite the big drop in weight that you see the first couple of days of this week. I didn't go mad on this holiday, I didn't eat tons, and also my stress levels haven't changed, and neither has my sleep. So quite a few of those variables are kept the same. I also weighed at the same time every day, and I also, kept what I was wearing the same every time that I weighed. So let's get into the nitty gritty. This is how much I ate every single day. So you can see that on average, I ate about 2,500 calories a day. What I did was I tracked everything I ate in my MyFitnessPal. I have my Garmin synced up to my MyFitnessPal, and it also calculates how many additional calories I've burnt that day through activity, including exercise I've recorded and steps. I didn't keep what I ate the same every day because obviously my activity levels differed, so I just ate as close to the number of calories that my MyFitnessPal was telling me to as I could. But it's quite hard to work out how much of something 65 calories is. So on quite a few days I was eating 26 or 2,700 calories, and then some days I was eating 2,300 calories. So it averages out to be about 2,500. So let's have a look at the impact it had on my weight. As you can see, I lost a little bit of weight at the start of the week, but I'm pretty sure, as I mentioned earlier, this is purely to do with the fact that I'd been, having a bit more alcohol a few days before. I'd probably having a bit more salt, and I had just come off my period, and I always see quite a big drop in my weight just after my period because I always see an increase just before. So I'm almost going to rule those results out. And then what we saw is my weight dropping down and then stabilising, dropping down a tiny little bit more, stabilising, that kind of spike you see towards the end is because I think because I had a cider, and I always find that alcohol just makes me hold on to weight the following day. But then you saw the day after, it went straight back down again. So again, I'm going to rule that one out, and I'm going to say that over the course of this experiment, which was about 8 days, start to finish, I did maintain my weight. You see a couple of spurious results at the start and in the middle, but actually overall, most of the days my weight pretty much stayed the same. And this honestly actually really surprised me, because I did go into this week assuming that my calories were going to be overestimated and that I was going to put on weight. And compared to the last time I did this, I was obviously eating a lot more food. I said in my first video that there is a kind of element of restriction to doing this.
So there was a small element of restriction.
Because once I'd reached my calories for the day, I had to stop eating. And if anything, I was the complete opposite this week. I wouldn't say that I was force feeding myself, but there definitely were a couple of those evenings where I was eating food that I didn't really want to eat particularly. I wasn't hungry, I'd had enough food for the day. And it did actually make me feel quite uncomfortable. Not from a physical, oh my god, I'm so full, I can't eat anymore uncomfortable, but I actually was worried about putting on weight. And I don't really know why, because I was never going to put on tons of weight eating, a couple of hundred extra calories a day, but yeah, it really didn't sit well with me having all of my meals and then thinking I need to eat more now. And it actually made me feel a little bit anxious, to be honest, when I was seeing those quite large numbers. And I was thinking, oh my god, I'm gonna have to eat so much food today, which is a very weird thing to think and a very weird headspace to be in. And the other slightly wild thing that happened as well is at the end of the Tuesday, which was the 6th day I'd done this, I'd eaten at least 500 calories more than when I was in my deficit every day. And if anything, I felt I looked the slimmest I've been for a long time. And actually, if you look at it, I'm only a kilo heavier now than I was sort of 4 or 5 weeks ago. But yeah, I had this really weird balance of feeling like I was eating too much food and yet feeling like I looked really slim. Very odd. And when I was getting to the point of feeling uncomfortable, I did consider stopping. And if it was making me feel physically uncomfortable and really anxious, I would always recommend to you to stop things that aren't making you feel great. But I did realise that it was just a, perception thing in my head, and possibly pointed out to me that maybe I was getting a little bit obsessive over calorie tracking. So I decided to carry on because I actually thought it would be good for me to do another few days. In terms of, positives and negatives of doing this, I will say that eating more food is definitely more fun than eating less food. Don't think that's going to be a surprise to anybody. But I will say that it did start to feel like a little bit of a chore by the end of the week. I was having to eat things that it wasn't that I didn't really want to eat, I just didn't feel like I needed to eat more. And I was having to add more food in after dinner, which is something I historically would have completely avoided doing. The other thing as well is that it's obviously easier to get more protein in when you eat more. I was easily clearing 150, 160 grams of protein every day, which in a deficit is really difficult to do. And the last thing as well is that I definitely noticed I had a bit more energy and a bit more strength in the gym, which again, I think you would expect, going from being in a fairly decent sized deficit to eating, on some days 700 or 800 calories more than that. You are going to feel like you've got more energy and like you can, lift anything. All in all, I would say this was actually a really interesting experiment to do on myself, and actually a pretty eye-opening video for me to make. Based on the results that I had, you could say that my Garmin is pretty accurate at guessing how many calories I need to maintain my weight. There's a lot of people who really don't rate activity trackers at all and will tell you that they're incredibly inaccurate. And for lots of other people, perhaps they might be. But clearly for me, they are a pretty decent reflection of my calorie requirements. But I think as a way of comparing relative effort, i.e. was this workout harder than the last one, and also as a general starting point for you to work out how many calories you might need to maintain your weight, I think they can be an incredibly useful tool. And those of you who've seen my Garmin review and the first Garmin video that I made, you will know that I absolutely love my Garmin Vivoactive 3, and the people who disagree with me can pry it out of my cold, dead hands. And just statistically speaking, activity trackers are going to be accurate, at least for some people, and maybe I'm just one of those. If you've ever tried something similar to this or you'd like to, let me know in the comments down below. And if you are going to do it, I would highly recommend trying to control as many of the variables we discussed at the beginning. So, you know, the food you eat and the exercise you're doing, and just see what it tells you. You might be absolutely blown away by the result, and you might find out that actually your maintenance calories are a lot more than you think they are, because that's what I found out. I hope you have a really lovely week, and I will see you soon.